Welcome back, everyone. Had some technical issues, unfortunately, which is really frustrating. It's happened a couple of times in ACC for some reason unbeknownst to me. But in terms of where we'll pick up from where we left off, there's been no change in the top four. They're still circulating quite close together. Last time we were watching, Sokolov was over a second clear, but that gap's come down. So Simon Whiting continuing the pressure on the Croatian. We've had Joe Warner go off the circuit. Number 75 went off at the penultimate corner. I'm just having a look through the field. Mark Chapman has already made a pit stop. Steve Hall is running in 7th place. Let's have a look at the garage and just go from there. So we still have the gaps are the same. Rakatamanga is still in the top 5. Danu's not far away from him though. Steve Hall's on his own. You've got Miroslav Grasic. Tom Creed has got past Michael van der Waal, but Jordan Harding is now hunting down a Dutchman for a spot in the top 10. Dennis Penders has quietly moved himself up to 12th place, and then it's John Wells. Ross Harris is now sat in 14th with the Croatian of Adam Peckman behind him. Tony Manley's gone backwards. He's had a little bit of a mistake out on circuit. And then we've got a few drivers who've been in the pits. Rich Jarren pitted because of his damage. Martin van Reenen has also pitted with damage. Chapman's been in the pits. He's pitted as a result of changing tyres and strategy. He was caught up in a few things earlier. Scott Clark and Joe Warner are also still circulating. So no retirements so far, but we still have a very close quartet. And it's Sokolov leading them here under the night skies of Kyalami. The action so far has been really good to watch. Everyone's trying to pace themselves as best as they can. And it's always pleasing to see the drivers having a good battle out there. But there's still an hour and 38 minutes remaining. It does say that Sokolov's in 2nd place. That's not accurate. There we go. It's just re-updated. But Sokolov 1.3 seconds clear of Whiting, so just finding a little bit of form again. There's Grasic, there's Penders, Peckman as well. A ride with Danny Zoutenbayer. Let's get an onboard shot. There we go. Let's go with the helmet camera. You can see the different lines being taken by the front quartet. All 4 of these drivers can win this race. I know Sokolov is just starting to pull away again, but I feel like this is one of those races that won't be decided until the last 10 minutes. Just have that feeling. Packham really up to the back of Whiting, who's had a few difficult corners actually. He's run wide a couple of times. And that gap's just ballooned to 1.5 seconds now. Ooh, very wide from the championship leader in front of us. Packham running a little bit of a wider line there compared to before. And then a touch of oversteer from our 4th place runner. See if there are any other close fights on circuit. Oh, that's a close fight, and that's a bare knuckles fight actually. That's at turn 1. Tony Manley went into the side of Peckman, who has carried on. It looked as if Peckman was sideways, but then Manley hit him and is the one who's come off worse, because Peckman's all the way down at turn 5 and exiting turn 5, and Manley's just lost even more time. Yeah, 7 seconds. Well, we joined it live. That is a shame. Don't like to see any incidents on track, but that is just how it goes sometimes. Following the onboard of Ross Harris here in 14th place. I do have to say I'm very partial to the engine note of the Lamborghini. Does make a fantastic noise, it has to be said. John Wells not far away from Mr. Penders. He's had a really solid season, actually, has Dennis. He's currently sat in 8th place in the Drivers' Championship. He's unlikely to get overtaken by John Wells, who's 24 points back from him. But last few rounds, but definitely since the second half of the season, there's been some considerable improvements from the Belgian. He's had 3 top 10 finishes. He had a 7th at the Nordschleife. He had a 7th again at round 7 where we were at Alton Park. He was 9th last week. So Penders has been well deserving of his 8th place in the championship. Oh, Van der Waal, that's running wide. That's flirting with danger right there. Gap at the front's gone right up. Sokolov has turned on the afterburners. It's 2.6 seconds clear of Simon Whiting. It just makes you think with Sokolov, you know, a man who's currently 6th in the drivers' standings. What could have been for him? Because he has missed a race. You know, he missed the opening round at Zolder. You know, and his average finishing position this season has been effectively 5th place. He would have been right in the thick of the championship fight with Packham had it not been for that race missed. But he's putting on a good show again. Whether he can overtake Steve Hall in the driver's standings, just counting up the points in my head at the moment, he won't at the moment. He'll still finish 6th, but Sokolov, the man in form, the man who's won 3 races this season. Simon Whiting still in 2nd place. He's got Stuart Packham still running with him. Zoutenbayer's just fell away a little bit in the last few laps. And that gap now spreading out. We're coming up to almost a quarter of the way through this GT3 race here in South Africa. Danu is up to 5th. We've not seen that, but there has been an overtake. The Spaniard has gone up past the Frenchman, and he now has to find 6.3 seconds to get up to the back of Zoutenbayer. Don't discount Danu yet. There's still a long way to go, and I feel he's getting quicker as the race goes on. If we just have a look at Danu's lap times outside of if we just have a look here, you can see since the race started 43s, 43s and even 42, so long way to go yet in this race, but it looks like if he can keep up this form, he's going to be on for potentially catching the other drivers. Let's just have a look at the lap times from Sokolov. He's doing 42s as well. What about Zoutenbayer? Oh, we've gone to Stuart Packham. There you go, new fastest lap from Packham, a 42.1. So Packham now finding his feet and maybe just taking his time a little bit. Oh, Zoutenbayer. These are his free practice times, actually. It's a little bit frustrating. But in any case, these drivers really are putting a good effort in. Zoutenbayer in the 43s currently. Tony Banley in the 43s. Last lap, Whiting in the 43s as well. And I said before, I said earlier that we're now in the depths of night time. And again, the car characteristics are going to change. It's not going to be the same for everyone. Those that might have been, as Joe Warner goes off the road at turn number 6, it looks like, the exit of turn 6. You know, the driver's characteristics are going to be a little bit different. And the attention spans are still going to be quite strong at the moment. But Sokolov still in the 42s. These guys behind in the 43s at present. Danu in the 44s. And Zoutenbayer has just fallen away now. It's 3.4 seconds back, so that's going to take quite a lot for him to try and overhaul. But I do have to say that, and I've said a number of occasions this season about Zoutenbayer, you know, he's really impressed me. And again, this is another race where he's joined in, he's been on the pace straight away. You know, he debuted at round 5 at Nordschleife. You might remember the last 2-hour race that we had. Oh, Simon White and wide. That was close out of the exit of turn 8. Oh, that's Joe Warner off the road at the penultimate corner again. He's having a very challenging time. But as I was saying about Zoutenbayer, he has impressed me this season, and some people might say I've talked quite a lot about him, maybe too much, but when you join a 2-hour race, a lap down at the Nordschleife, and you finish in 10th place, I think that deserves to be talked about. You know, in the last 2 races at Suzuka and the Red Bull Ring, he has been on fire. 2nd place at Suzuka, he was 4th last week at Red Bull Ring. It's looking like another top 5 again for the sunshine yellow Ferrari. But again, I keep saying it, and I'll continue to say it all the way through to the end. There is a long, long, long way to go. Speaking of having a long way to go, at the start of the season, I'm sure John Wells felt like it was going to be a long, long season for him. But in truth, he hasn't done too badly. You know, the start of the season for John, the first 4 races, he, similar to Ross Harris really, he had nothing but bad luck. He was turned around pretty much on every single lap 1 start that we had. It happened again at the Nordschleife, but the difference is that Wells fought back big time. He finished 5th at the Nordschleife. Best result of the season that he has had so far. He's 12th at the moment. You know, he had a good 8th place, I think, at Alton Park. The Mercedes seem to be well equipped around there. Last 2 races, they haven't gone to plan in the same way. But in truth, Wells has put himself in a good position to finish in the top 10 in the drivers' standings. But he's got Martin Van Reene and Tony Manley within a point of him, so it is not over yet. He's got Ross Harris as well, not too far away in the standings. Sokolov still leads the way. Our cameraman, clearly operating in a different time zone on the exit of turn 2. Packham still following the wheel tracks of Simon Whiting. We're over Rakatamanga 8 seconds back now. And Daniel Danu has been into the pit, so he's made a stop. Now, I did see before that Danu had gone in. I don't think he'd made any incidents. I don't think he'd made a mistake or anything like that. But the McLaren is clearly pitted to get some fresh air, although then again he could have had some fresh gravel in his face if he hadn't been as lucky as he was there. Coming around the penultimate corner, he's got lap traffic in front of him, which is Chapman, so he'll get out of the way. But Danu has a nice gap to Eden Peckman, who's all the way at turn 1. So he doesn't have to worry too much. And now the drivers are into that phase of the race where some can make pit stops and some will be changing tyres, as Warner's gone off the track again. He's having a very difficult time. But Warner doing the sensible thing and just getting out of the way, although he's got to be careful rejoining here. Yeah, Rakatamanga giving him a wide berth. Steve Hall will get through, will he? Yes, he will. No problems there. So Warner having a difficult time. We have lost the driver. I'm just trying to work out which driver that is. Well, the drivers now, there is a bit of a field spread going on outside of Packham and Whiting. But still, we are here in South Africa, a wonderful place in the world, actually, to be honest with you, here in Kyalami. Absolutely fabulous place. If you don't know much about South Africa in general, I would seriously encourage you to go and do some research. It is a fabulous country, but we are in the province of Gauteng, and if you don't know where that is, it's kind of in the northeast of South Africa, as Van der Waal goes very wide. Has been since overtaken by Jordan Harding. He's 2 seconds behind him at the minute. But, you know, where we are here in Gauteng, it's probably the most lived in area of South Africa. I think a quarter of the population lives in Gauteng, in South Africa, and that's a quarter of the population of the whole of South Africa, so it's a very packed province. But obviously the grandstands will be also naturally very packed for this wonderful race that we've got going on so far. You know, a lot of history with it as well. And if you don't know much about Kyalami as a circuit, for those that are curious, you know, it's been around for a very long time. It was first broke ground effectively in the 1950s. You know, it was developed by, I believe, two people called Harry Pearce and Dick Bremner. They were the ones who came up with the design for it. And I think its first race happened in 1961, so we're going back quite a long time. The track was very different to how it is nowadays. You know, nowadays it's got officially 16 corners, but on the GT3 cars it's 14 corners, officially speaking. And for Kyalami itself, you know, the original circuit, you know, was around for the best part of a quarter of a century, but I only had 9 circuit officially recognised corners. Since then, it's changed quite a fair bit. You know, it got revised in 1988. In the 1980s, we still had the South African Motorcycle Grand Prix at Kyalami. That happened right up until 1992, and then it got changed again from 1992. It had a few different types of layouts. In 1992, it was the last time Formula 1 visited the circuit. Mansell won that day. It's the only race in Formula 1 history, just well, to make you know, in the 90s anyway, there were no on-track overtakes. So people say Formula 1 is boring nowadays. Try visiting the 1992 Grand Prix. But again, the circuit's changed since then. It has had a few revisions, and it is a great circuit. You know, the current layout, it's been present since 2015. The last 10 years we've been racing around this graded circuit. It's been really good to watch. I've really enjoyed watching the GT cars go around this circuit. You know, and some people ask, will it bring back different types of motorsports again? Will we see any other cars other than intercontinental GT cars? remains to be seen really as Simon Whiting goes a little bit wide on the exit of turn 12. And I think Joe Warner's gone off the road again at his favourite corner of turn 13. He is doing a joker lap through there, I'm convinced, every lap round. But we will see with Kyalami. We will see what the future has in store for it. And will there be any form of hypercar activity outside of the GT3s, which are arguably the top level of races that go around this circuit? The fastest lap record around here is in an Audi R8. It was a specific supercar series that set the lap record, but that was a 141.4. You know, the GT3's fastest car was Matt Campbell in a Porsche 911 5 years ago, and he did a 42.0. So, you know, GT3s are clearly the most quickest of, clearly the most fastest car around here, typically. And that's why they're so well suited to this circuit. And also why Stuart Packham and Simon Whiting are so well suited for one another, because they have been inseparable on circuit. They're 4 seconds behind our race leader, 5 seconds in front of Danny Zoutenbayer, but they are together forever on track. And we've had this a few times over the seasons. I remember commentating on a race at the end of last season at Spa-Francorchamps for the 2 hours, and Simon Whiting and Packham were together there. They had a wonderful fight around it, and they do tend to stick together. They know how each other race. And I think they do lean on each other, as Sokolov goes a little bit quicker again. He's about 3/10 faster. Zoutenbayer starting to struggle, I think, on the tyres. He's a little bit slower than this duo. But still a long way to go. Let's get on board with what it feels like to be behind another car. I think Michael van der Waal, yeah, he's been in the wars. Something's gone on with his front windscreen. But what I was trying to do is, let's get back to on board with Stuart Packham, see what it's like to follow a car in the inky blackness of night in South Africa. See if the championship leader can do anything. And the big question really is Stuart Packham just sitting behind Whiting and thinking, I can follow your pace and I'm happy to do so, or does he feel he can get up the road and after Sokolov? It remains to be seen. It's not impossible. There's Daniel Danu. He's coming up to the back of Edin Peckman, so he made that pit stop earlier. Does he go up the inside here at turn 1? I think Peckman's jumped out the way, and the Croatian has done. He doesn't want to lose any time. He's in his own race. And the Spaniard gains another place. And now he's got a little gap forward. Well, I say a little gap forward. Quite a big gap forward to John Wells. Yeah, he's 17 seconds behind the Mercedes. So that's nice clear air to be in. For anyone who's curious, by the way, if you wanted to rent Kyalami, as in the racetrack, if you wanted to have a fun night or fun day with your friends, apparently it costs about $50,000 to rent the facility. So if you are curious and you've got a few quid lying around, then why not contact the Kyalami track owner and see if he will let you have a few days having a spin around this brilliant circuit. Still following Stuart Packham here in third place with an hour and 16 minutes to go. 45 minutes of this race practically completed. Like I say, those that are watching, great to see you. If you are, do please comment. Oh, Simon Whiting sliding the car out of turn number 10. 9 and 10 are two separate corners. But Whiting starting to widen his entrances and exits, so I wonder if he's struggling a little bit with the tyres. Ooh, Sokolov run wide, and then Whiting ran wide, and then Packham ran wide, but the gap's come down again. So Sokolov's had another little moment somewhere out on track, because he was, well, on the last sector it's 3.3, it's back up to 3.7, so Sokolov's not having the most comfortable time at the front. He's still pushing hard. There's Joe Warner. I want to follow Joe Warner because he's had a few issues in this race so far. He's gone off at this corner every single time. He's very careful through that corner this time around. I think Joe's just... Ooh, he's just struggling a little bit, is Warner. I think he's lacking a bit of confidence around this track. And if you don't know Kyalami, if you don't get up to speed with it, it does bite you back. And I think for Warner, he's said himself a number of times in the Discord chat, he's just trying to get up to speed. He's just trying to become more competitive, and this is a real challenge for him today. He does have Jordan Harding coming up to lap him, so he'll want to get out of the way. There is the Mustang, and look at that, right out of the way. No problem from Froggles. Never grows tired, I'll be completely honest with you. Danu, the Spaniard, the highest of the drivers who've pitted so far. I wonder if he took new tyres. Big kick of oversteer as he exits turn 1. Ross Harris is also out on circuit. He has made a pit stop. Love to be able to get a good camera shot. Let's ride on board with him and take you through a lap and a bit of Kyalami. He's been lapped by Tom Creed, but that's because he's made a pit stop. He's in a Mustang lapped sandwich at the moment because he's got one in front of him and Jordan Harding a little bit further back. He's about 5 seconds behind. But you can see the challenge that Kyalami presents itself as in the night sky. You can see that everything is a lot closer. It feels the shadows make the track walls feel a lot closer. But let's go on a lap with the Lamborghini Huracan driver. Harris in 14th place. Clips through the first non-corner, and then he approaches turn number 1. Brakes just before the 100-metre marker. Down into... Well, he stays in 3rd place, does Harris. Clearly not having all the confidence in the world with his traction control through there. Out of turn 2. Down into turn 3. I say down. Up into turn 3. Down a gear for it, though. And then on the exit, he goes. Building up the revs for turn 5. 4th gear, a little bit of a oversteer moment for the Lamborghini, and then again he'll be downshifting into turn 6. Looking very tentative at the moment. I wonder if he's still fighting a little bit with some aero damage potentially. Turn 7 and turn 8 for the Lamborghini, relatively smooth for him. He's going a lot quicker than he did before, and then he's got to get his braking spot right. That's so challenging to do in these nighttime skies. Out of the corner and out of turn 10. He'll come towards turn 11. Will he lift through the left-hander? No, he's completely flat throttle, and then he'll get down into 2nd gear for the right-hander. It just looks quite... I was about to say, it looks quite cautious from Ross, but he'll be fully aware of the fact that he's got an hour and 10 minutes remaining. Meanwhile, Steve Hall is up to 5th place, so I'm just looking I'm just going to scan through the drivers here. Rover Rakatamanga was comfortably on his own. And I wonder if he's had a spin or something. I'm just looking at the car. It's really difficult to see any damage in the night time. Doesn't look as if he does, but Steve Hall moves himself into 5th position. Stuart Packham is still behind the McLaren of Simon Whiting. And Sokolov 5 seconds up the road. And we'll be coming into the first ideal time for pit stops in the next few minutes. And I am certain that the drivers will be taking on a new set of tyres. I thought for just a moment that Packham had a really good run on Whiting, but that wasn't the case. It looked like there'd be a little bit of a latency issue between the cars, but thankfully they didn't latence themselves into one another. But Simon Whiting, every time we go on board at this corner, he always looks confident through turn 4. He's just got a nice run out of that corner every single time. And Packham can't close up in the way that he would like to. The corner they come out of turn 8 up towards turn 9. Down through the gears first for the BMW. Gets on the power nice and early. A little snap of oversteer for Whiting, but Packham just can't find a way through. Ooh, that was wide from Packham. He nearly went off the road there. Now there is a car just in front of us, but that is Van der Waal, the Dutchman, who's in 16th place. That is not Tony Sokolov. He's a little bit further up the road. How long can Whiting stay in front of Packham for? You know, in terms of this pressure that the leading driver in the championship is applying to him. Can he keep putting the pressure on him? So it's a huge... Oh, yes, he can. I did say, how long can he keep that pressure up for? It turns out it was only a corner later that Simon Whiting ran wide on the brakes. And Stuart Packham is up to 2nd. And now we will get to see if he has the performance to not only pull away from Whiting, but to try and catch Sokolov and round off his season with a race win. We will see. There's a long way to go. But that's a crucial moment in the race. It's the first time we've seen Simon Whiting make a mistake, but it's just showing you now we're in that phase of the race where drivers' concentration will be getting tested quite a lot. They haven't had the chance to have a reset in the pit lane. Oh, he runs very deep again. He's off the road, in fact, at turn number 9 and 10. So Simon Whiting goes from being right under the rear spoiler of Packham to over 2 seconds back. Have those tyres cried enough for Whiting, or is it just a case of a couple of mistakes? If it's the latter, he needs to just get himself realigned and get back on it as swiftly as he possibly can. Looks like it is a mistake, so to speak, because Whiting has carried on. Tony Sokolov did a 43.6 on that lap. Packham did a 44 flat. But now he will be the first time without traffic. Oh, those Scott Clark's having a difficult time. Although, to be fair to Scott, he does try his utmost until the pain becomes a big problem for him. Steve Hall in the pits, making his mandatory pit stop. So he was running in 5th position. Let's see where he re-emerges it. Whether he'll come out in the pack, or will he get a little bit of free space for himself? But Packham up into second place, which he'll be delighted with. Sokolov still running in the lead, as he has done since minute 15. And he's got a 5.5 second advantage to Stuart Packham. Mark Chapman has been on his... Oh, Steve Hall's got a stop-go penalty, and that's going to put a huge dent in his opportunity to get into the top 5. Oh, he definitely didn't need that, but that's going to seriously scupper his chances. So Steve Hall, he re-emerged in 12th place, and he had a nice gap as well to get up to speed, but he's now going to have to go and get back in the pit lane, and that's going to cost them immense amount of time. So the reigning champion having his struggles. So that means Rover Rakatamanga is going to be comfortably on his own in 5th position. Even when he does make his pit stop, he's 20 seconds clear of Tom Creed. But the Frenchman on for another good result. Speaking of not being comfortable, Tom Creed has got the Bosnian of Grasic right behind him, and I feel that the Mustang at this point in the race will be really starting to weigh heavy on its tyres. The tyre wear is going to be a little bit more, I think, in that Mustang than the Ferraris. They look very fleet-footed around here. And Grasic, well, I said earlier, you know, he's had a couple of top 10s this season. You know, can he go and get what would be his best result of the season? Because he had 7th last week. Can he go and get his 6th place? I mean, there's still drivers behind that have made their pit stop, so it's certainly not over yet. And the other thing to say as well is that catching the pair of these two is Jordan Harding. So Steve Hall just clears his stop-go penalty there, so he's come out a long, long way back, actually, his Hall. But Jordan Harding is catching these two. And I think that Harding will be quite chuffed if he can end up in the top 6, despite going off the road earlier. Peckham on his own, well, not quite on his own compared to other drivers, but he's in 13th. He's got a couple of drivers between him in the form of Sokolov and Packham, are two front runners. I think Packham's catching Sokolov as well, actually. Looking at that time gap. Ooh, that's wide from the Croatian. Gets back on the circuit. I think he's going to let Packham through nice and easy. Yes, he does. But as I was saying, I think Packham's catching him at the front. We'll cut back to that gap. Scott Clark in the pits. Danny Zoutenbayer is in 3rd. So that means that Simon Whiting has made a pit stop. We ride with John Wells, who's behind Dennis Penders. Big block V8 in that Mercedes. The Ferrari of Penders going all over the shop over the bump, and he's now in the pits. So Wells carries on. Grasic in the pits too. So the pit stops are coming now. Simon Whiting will be in front of John Wells. So that gives you an idea of where everyone is currently. Daniel Danu now moving up the order. Oh, Steve Hall didn't serve his pit lane penalty. I did say it was cleared on my screen, but not to worry. But Danu is in 9th position. He did pit earlier. I'm just wondering if the Spaniard had any damage or something, because he's still kind of... He's 12 seconds behind Simon Whiting at the moment. So where he will end up, I would fathom he'd probably end up in front of Rover Rakatamanga. As I said earlier, Packham is catching Sokolov up front. The gap was 5.5 seconds. It's now 4.3. Zoutenbayer in 3rd. Rakatamanga in the pit. So he's responding to Steve Hall's pit stop, but I don't think he's aware of the fact that Hall has a stop-go penalty. As Tom Creed goes on by, he's got Jordan Harding 2.7 seconds behind him, so the two Mustangs together on track. John Wells in 8th position. It's courtesy of the pit stops. Daniel Danu is closing that gap down to him, and I do think that Danu pitted for some fresher tyres before. That's why he's on a charge at the moment, and Hall gets himself into the pits to serve that drive-through stop-go penalty, and Rakitamanga now leaves the pit lane, so he'll have seen that stop-go for Steve Hall, and he'll be delighted with that. Not that he wishes ill on anybody, but for his own race. Race leader, Sokolov in the pits. That's what we were waiting to see. He has gone in. Packham carries on. So he's going to do a contra strategy to our race leader. And I imagine that as Joe Warner goes round at the penultimate corner for, I think, probably the 8 millionth time, this fight is this going to be interesting now to see where Sokolov feeds out. Steve Hall goes past him in the pit lane. Joe Warner, he might just about sneak out in front of Tom Creed here. Although, having said that, now he's getting underway. No, he wasn't. That was a trick of the eye there. He's going to come out behind the Mustang. Now he gets going. And he's getting his car up to speed now. So where will he feed out behind Jordan Harding? He does. That's not the best placement for Sokolov. He's behind two Mustangs. Yes, he'll have the faster tyres on his car because he's got fresh ones compared to those in front of him. But it's going to cost him a little bit of time trying to get past those two. And as I've said throughout this season, the Mustangs are quick in a straight line. It won't be easy. He's 8.2 seconds clear of Simon Whiting, who had those issues earlier. So that's worked out about the right gap, really. Harris running in 13th place. Still cars in front of him that are yet to make a pit stop. These are the two Mustangs that have yet to do so. And there is Jordan just there with Tony Sokolov behind him. And that gap coming down all the time. But it'll be down to Sokolov to make a move on the Mustang. You can see now the gap almost less than a second. Very close. Stuart Packham in the pits. So the driver in second place in the race has made his pit stop, as has Danny Zoutenbayer. They're in as well. I'm just looking to see, yes, Harding comes in. Creed, I think, has carried on. So for Sokolov, he'll be delighted because there's one car out of the way. Packham now coming out of the pit lane. He gets up to speed now. He's going to be in front, I think, of Sokolov. It's going to be very close on the outside. This is for the net race lead, and Sokolov gets through those tyres just up to temperature for the Ferrari, but that was exceptionally close. Packham all over the rear spoiler of that Ferrari, but if they both have fresh tyres on, this is going to be a bombastic final 56 and 27 seconds to go. 56 minutes left in this race, and the net race leaders are together on track. Simon Whiting will be in third place. They're not in the lead yet because Tom Creed is the highest runner who's yet to make a pit stop. There he is in the white Mustang. And John Wells is John Wells has gone off the road. Now, John Wells has gone off at an interesting place of the circuit. He's gone off at turn 4, so maybe time to get a new set of tyres onto that Mercedes, John, because You've just thrown away what was 6th place. But Sokolov is still in 2nd place, but Packham is right with him. And once Packham gets onto the back of people, it's not often he lets go. He's very good at hanging with the cars in front, typically. Especially with Creed going round for another lap. These two feasibly could catch the race leader. Jordan Harding very close to the back of Grasic. So Jordan's extra couple of laps that he did compared to Miroslav Grasic's undercut has led him to be pretty much in the same place as he did before. So he's not really lost any time. Having said that, Packham likes to keep close to people. He's just dropped half a second, so that's a bit frustrating. Danu's still circulating in 6th position. I think Danu's running a solid race, but he can't get on terms with the cars in front of him. The leading quartet have just been in a class of their own. And as I said, John Wells needed to pit. He is pitting, so that's going to drop him outside of the top 10. So it's Grasic, then it's Harding, and it might still be John Wells. Well, actually, no, it won't be John Wells in the top 10. It'll be either Penders or Steve Hall. The two Ferraris on track together, and Sokolov has now got a second and a bit on Stuart Packham. Let's see if we can get on board with Steve Hall. We can't. We'll just go on board with Dennis Penders instead. Oh, that's a late lunge. And I knew that was coming from Steve Hall, but he just couldn't get it stopped. Well, there we go. That was his first attempt at getting past the Belgian. Unsuccessful on this occasion. But points given for the effort. Packham circulating by himself, currently in 14th. He isn't a lap down at the moment. He's going to go past Tom Creed, who's still in the pit lane. But I think Tom Creed's on lap 38. Scott Clark's on lap 26, so he's giving himself a breather. Danny Zoutenbayer is still in the top 4, but I think he's on his way for a lonely race now. He did get gapped earlier on, and after that he started to fall away. However, he is 20 seconds clear of Daniel Danu, so he's not under pressure from behind. Just needs to keep the car pointing in a straight line like everybody else. John Wells has re-emerged in 12th position, so everyone has now made a pit stop because Tom Creed did as well. Just looking to find where Tom is actually. Yeah, he's in 7th place, and I tell you something, his pit stop has really worked out. He's 8 seconds clear of Jordan Harding, so they were only separated by 3 seconds before the pit stop, and admittedly Jordan, Harding and Grasic were fighting together on track, but Tom Creed has put in a really good couple of in-laps, really. Well, that's put him in a great position. So he's running in 7th place. Rich Jarram, a couple of laps down, but he's still circulating in 16th. We've got another retirement. We've lost another car out there this evening. It's not Scott Clark. Yeah, we lost a couple of cars so far this evening, which is a massive shame. I'm just trying to work out the drivers who have unfortunately disappeared from the race this evening. Grasic and Jordan Harding are the two closest drivers on track inside the top 10. For the battle for 10th place, Dennis Penders and Steve Hall still very, very close together. In terms of the drivers that we have lost in this race, let's go on board with Steve Hall. Let's go with that camera. It's a bit finicky, but we do our best. Ooh, that's wide from Penders, but he takes that line to get the car turned in. There's a Joker car in front of them that's kicking up all of the gravel, but Steve Hall wants to get on by. This is the recovering Ferrari. Very close into turn 5. A little wiggle from the Ferrari ahead. Lives to fight another day. But yeah, in terms of the drivers that we've lost Michael van der Waal, which is a big shame because van der Waal was running inside the top 10, so that's a massive shame to have lost a Dutchman. Tony Manley's no longer here as well. Lost him earlier on. And I think Martin van Reenen has also gone, sadly. Now we've lost 3 cars. In fact, I think we might have lost 4. I'm just looking to see who the other driver is, as we still continue to follow the rear spoiler of the 296 Ferrari GT3. Just trying to work that out. If there is anybody else we've got missing, but it is Michael van der Waal, Tony Manley, Martin van Reenen. Yeah, those are the 3 that we've lost, so that's all we've lost so far. Great shame, because it's always good when the drivers can put a show on. Oh, that is wide from Penders. Is that the chance that Steve Hall's been waiting for? No, would be the answer to that question, because Penders is doing a great job at defending. He's trying to hang on to that final spot in the top 10. And Penders would love to round off the season with 4 top 10 finishes out of 10. Steve Hall doesn't want that. Steve Hall wants to ensure he gets another top 10 finish. He's been inside the top 10 every single round this season, has Steve, apart from round 7. So way back at Alton Park, where he finished 11th that day. And he did have a few struggles. Ooh, that's later on the brakes from the Ferrari. Well, I'm enjoying these fights on circuit. I was going to say 2 close fights, but Grasic has dropped 2 seconds to Jordan Harding in front of him. I want to see whether Steve Hall is going to try and make a move here. He's really pushing that Ferrari as hard as he can, but he just can't get the exit. You know, he's still got 3/4 of an hour remaining. And it is evident that if Steve were to get past Penders, he's got more speed in the tank. He's going to go down the inside again, nice and late, but I think he's doing that just to try and put Penders off. But the more times you do that, the more the driver in front's going to be wise to it. And a much better line from Penders, but then his exit wasn't great. These 2 fighting for all their worth. It's really great to see. Oh, that is close into turn 5, and Steve Hall just about collected the car together, pushing the limits of adhesion of the tarmac there. Let's see if we can get... There we go, that's what we want. Following the external shot, it does look as if it's starting to get a little bit lighter out there. Oh, as late as you dare for Steve. And a kick of oversteer as well. Just trying to get the helmet camera. There we go. Up to 5th gear for the Ferrari. Down through the gears again. Nice neat line from the Ferrari duo in front of us. And what I mean by in front of us is on our screens. There is a blue flag flying, but Scott Clark is well up the road, so it's certainly not for him, and there's no one in the pit lane. So, another lap we go. Number 42 for Steve Hall. And every single time he gets close, he just can't get the exit out of the final corner. He needs to try and change it up a little bit. Again, he's very quick in the first couple of corners, in the first sector, is Steve. He's very fast through there, but he just can't get on terms with the exits that Penders has. Ooh, a little bit of a wiggle for the Belgian in front of us, but he lives to tell the tale. There's Rover Rakatamanga. And there's Penders. I wanted to just get it on board with Penders from the rear view camera as we come into the braking zone for turn 9. I noticed that Penders doesn't downshift until a little bit earlier than Hall behind him, but also that he doesn't upshift into 4th before the braking zone for turn 9. And he is buzzing the limiter. Hall again looking very close to the back of the Belgian, but he just can't find a way through. Into the penultimate corner. Both of them running up to the extremities of the corner now. Can Hall get it turned in? He goes too much over the curb each time, does Hall, and that's what's compromising him through there. And he's too far back. And I think that Hall is so focused on getting a good entry into the final corner that it's actually compromising him a bit. Different lines take her through turn 4. And Penders with a much better run, so a nice exit for him. Ooh, just had a little bit of an update to the timing screen, saying that they're in 8th and 9th. They're not actually, they're in 9th and 10th, and sure enough the timing tower has updated itself again to do that. Back in the race lead, Tony Sokolov and Packham separated by 2 seconds. And Daniel Danu has made another pit stop, so he's in 11th place. So I wonder if Danu's going to just try and push to the end on fresh tyres and see what he can do with it. But I think it's a lot of time lost in the pit lane around here, but it is a technical circuit, so it may pay off. Hall closing the gap again. He gets very good corner entries, does the number 5 Ferrari. And again using all the extra curve. What's his entry into the final corner like this time? This time it's better. That's a lot better from Hall. He's closer than he's been before to Penders. This is an opportunity. I think he's going to be too far back, but that might just show him the way. If he wants to overtake the Belgian, oh, he's going to look a little bit at the inside. He's putting his car in places to put Penders off, but I think the jig's up. I think Penders knows that he's going to try and look at turn 4 as well with his different line. And Penders doing a sterling job here. Really impressive defensive drive this. Through turn 5 they go. What a move from Steve Hall. That is an overtake that you don't see at turn 6. He sent a lunge down the inside. Penders was very compliant. And that has finally brought the reigning champion past the Belgian. Fabulous overtake. It's took him the best part of 44 years. In reference to the laps, of course. But he has made it past. And it was a great fight from Penders. But again, we'll see now. Does Hall have the pace to pull away from the Belgian? The other thing for the two of them to remember is that they're only 5 seconds clear of the race leader at the minute. You know, and Hall had his 30-second penalty before, so he should be further up the road. He should be up with maybe Grasic or Harding, but that's just how the cookie crumbles. And the race certainly crumbled a little bit for Hall after that drive-through penalty. But he's already, yeah, you can see he's already getting the hammer down. He's a second clear of Penders, so Hall now has been released. He's got a long, long way to go before he can catch Grasic, but there's 39 minutes and 30 seconds to go of this session. Anything can happen here. So Packham is 2.2 away from Tony Sokolov. Well, he was 2.2, it's now 2.3. Zoutenbayer is within striking distance of Simon Whiting, who has made a mistake somewhere, because he was only 8 seconds off the back of the race leader. He is now 14 seconds behind Stuart Packham, so he's definitely made a mistake. So Zoutenbayer is back in play for the podium. Rover Rakatamanga is all the way back at turn 1 and has a little bit of an oversteer moment going into the corner. Tom Creed is in 6th position. He's got Jordan Harding 6 seconds behind them in 7th. Grasic is 8th and doing a good job, 5 seconds behind Jordan. Steve Hall, having got past Dennis Penders, who goes off the road at turn 12, is in 9th place, but he's he's not just a long way away from Grasic. He was a long, long way away from the tarmac as he went into the gravel trap there, well, the sand pit really. Got away with that considering that Penders had also made a mistake. Danny was in 11th with his second pit stop, but sadly I don't think that's gonna pay off for him. I think he's lost too much time, but whether he had damage earlier which forced him to pit, we'll have to find out after the race. John Wells is in 12th, but he's 2 laps down according to our timing being. We'll wait for him to cross the line. No, he's not actually 2 laps down. He's 2 laps down, potentially a lap down on the race leader, but 2 laps according to the game. So he's 11 seconds behind Danny. Ross Harris is going to come across the line as well, so he's in 13th position. Peckman is in the middle sector in 14th. Chapman, the fastest driver on track, but he's had a bit of a mare this evening. And I think that spin he had earlier into the wall really did cause him a lot of damage, but the Dayglow Green Ferrari man is on a charge. And he's not far away from Peckman, so let's wait and see if he can catch up to him. Wait for him to tick the time, but yeah, 4.9 seconds. I'm going to keep an eye on that. Rich Jarram still circulating despite his big shunt at turn number 12, 13 as well. Joe Warner's favourite corner is turn 13. He's 9 laps down, but I think for Joe, he's just going to get points for the finish tonight, which is his main aim, really, for the Joker car. And Scott Clark back in the pits, just trying to save his arms. Gap at the front, 1.9 seconds now. So that traffic has just disrupted Sokolov's flow a little bit. Packham definitely on a mission to try and keep pace with the Ferrari. He wants to win that championship in style. Zoutenbayer is in 4th. And closing. So we've got a few drivers closing on one another. Zoutenbayer catching Simon Whiting and Mark Chapman catching Edin Peckman. So we'll keep an eye on it. I think Chappers will probably catch Peckman earlier than you think, but the problem is he's got to try and clear Grasic in front of him. He's got to unlap himself. But Chapman on an absolute charge, as is Steve Hall. He's 6 seconds clear of Penders since he got through, so starting to see the real pace demonstrated by the number 5. There is Grasic at the moment, running off the road at the final cut. Oh, he's hit the wall, actually. Just see if there's any damage on the Ferrari. He clipped the wall on the outside. Chapman went off with him as well. I think Chapman is going to go up the inside and unlap himself. Yeah, Grasic's just moving out of the way. So let's hope he's not got any significant damage from that, but a little bit of a mistake from the Bosnian there. But that gives free rein now for Chapman to go after Peckman for 14th place. We ride with Danny Zoutenbayer, the Dutchman. 1.3 now behind Whiting. And with 34 minutes and 35 seconds to go, podium spots are blown wide open. But Zoutenbayer has closed that gap right down, and he's really starting to put the pressure on Whiting. But we saw earlier, Whiting can put a defence on if he needs to, but that's a moment. Oh, Zoutenbayer's rounded in the wall. That was his chance to catch up to the McLaren, and he's dropped it on the exit of what would be turn 6 and 7. Noses the wall too, and what was going to be an absolutely brilliant opportunity to get on the podium has just fallen away for the Ferrari. Now, is his damage bad enough to go in the pits? He's 24 seconds in front of Rakitamanga. He's not under any pressure really from behind, and even with Rakitamanga, even if he pitted got a new set of tyres, he's going to come out behind Jordan Harding probably if he decides to pit. Just seeing if John Wells is catching him on circuit. No, Zoutenbayer's carrying on, so maybe the damage is manageable. Harris, Clark and Warner all in the pit, so they clearly need a new set of tyres, but Zoutenbayer drops back to 6.5 seconds behind the McLaren. We'll see how that gets on with his race. Want to try and cut to wherever Mark Chapman is. He's got past Ed and Peckman whilst we were watching that accident. So Chapper's into the 13th place position. And just look to see the next driver up the road from him. Well, is Daniel Danu, but he's on another lap. So that might be as high as Chapper's goes, unless there are incidents ahead of him. Back at the front. Tony Sokolov leading the way. Stuart Packham in second place, Simon Whiting now in third, and has a 7-second gap to what will be the ailing Danny Zoutenbayer. We frustratingly have a bit of an issue here. I do apologise for that brief moment there where we just had to cut away. But we have a bit of an issue that I can't seem to... Let's see if that works. Yes, it did. I had an issue there where I was stuck in the menu and I couldn't get out of it, so I thought, turn the controller off, turn it back on, and hopefully, yes, we can go back through the drivers. So, Sokolov 2.5 seconds clear of Packham. Whiting in third place as we approach the final half an hour of what has been what I would describe as being a very mixed race. There's been a lot of accidents, there's been a lot of incidents, but a lot of action too on track. And Zoutenbayer dropping away from Simon Whiting, dropping it on the exit of turn 6. He saw the mistake from Whiting, got on the power a bit too early, round the Dutchman went. And I'd like to keep an eye on Rakatamanga. He's 26 seconds behind the sunshine yellow Ferrari. Keep an eye on that gap, ladies and gentlemen. See if that closes down over the next few laps. Tom Creed is in 6th position. I'm going to have a little look at the lap times here, because Steve Hall's been lapped. But a 1:45.2 from Rakatamanga on the last lap. Zoutenbayer did a 43.9, so clearly the damage is affecting him a little bit, but not as much as I thought it was going to. But then Tom Creed, who sat in 6th place, a 44.1, he's 10 seconds behind the Alchemist, aka the Frenchman Rakatamanga, the number 14, trying to be hunted down by the number 13. As I said before, the drivers out on circuit are now approaching that phase in the race where 28 minutes to go, mistakes will start to creep in, people will be getting tired, the arms will be getting tired at this point for our sim races, as Creed takes a little bit of slipstream from Warner. Mistakes will start to creep in now, and we will see, certainly, a few more issues, I reckon, out there on track for a couple of drivers. I will do my best to see all of the action as best as we can. But 28 minutes remaining in this session. Rich Jarram's still circulating. He's 3 laps down at the moment, but to be expected after his shunt with the barrier earlier. Oh, Jordan Harden just cut it in front of Rich Jarram. He wanted to get his line perfect for turn 5. I think Jordan Harden put in a decent recovery drive today after his issues earlier. He got caught up in the pack. He's got about the same pace as Tom Creed at the moment. But I've noticed later on in the stints, Harden seems to close the gap up to Creed. So let's just wait and see. This one could still play out. The Mustangs could give us a feisty on-track fight. Sokolov now just stretching the Ferrari's power banks a little bit more. He's got 3 seconds to champion-elect Stuart Packham, who is in 2nd place. And I think Packham will continue to try and put the pressure on Sokolov. He won't give up, but I think in the last few laps he might, if he's still at this stage of the race, he might just back off. But our race leader, he's won 3 races this season, the most of any driver in the field. Let me correct myself, actually, the 2nd most amount of victories this season. But he is about to, if he carries on the way he is about to become the joint highest race winner of the season. You know, Kosic, who's not here tonight, he's won 4 races. You know, he won 3 out of the last 4 races, but he's not here this evening, sadly. You know, Packham has won a race as well. And any other driver in the field who's won a race other than Chapman, Sokolov, and, of course, Kosic is Mark Chapman, who won the first race all the way back at round 1 when he fended off the BMW at Zolder. I think Chappers has been... a mixture of unlucky and unforced errors, really, for the Dayglow Ferrari. He has had a few mistakes, but he's been involved in a few things as well. He's not had the results as he would have wanted as Chappers since that victory. He did have a third place finish at round 6 at Spa, but he's had nothing really to show for it since then. He had a 5th at Suzuka, but that could have been even better as well. But the lime green Ferrari in 13th place and trying to find a way up through the field again. Steve Hall's in 9th. He's still quite a ways away from Miroslav Grasic in 8th. Rakatamanga is still 10 seconds clear of Tom Creed. But again, Rover, I think he will be quite pleased with his season, the way it's panned out in the second half, because he's shown some really good qualifying pace. And I think he's a dark horse for the next season in terms of some podiums if he carries on. I hope he does. But the Frenchman certainly has the speed to get to the podiums. Does he have the next season? Does he have that ability to take that consistency on? But so far it's another top 5 finish. Miroslav Grasic, again, he's another driver. He's really improved over recent races. He's on for his 3rd top 10 result in 3 races. He's had a 9th and a 7th. He's going to get 8th by the looks of things at the moment. He has had another top 10 as well. He had 10th place back at round 1 in Zolder, but last few races he's really been on form. Dennis Penders, he's in the top 10 as well. And I think Penders is going to secure, well, he definitely will secure 8th place in the driver's standings, but this is another top 10 result for him. And, you know, he's competed in all 10 rounds this season as the Belgian, and it looks like he's going to get half of those finishes in the top 10. So he's had a really solid season. Nice to see him out there. I think we'll have a little overview of all the drivers whilst we're here. Scott Clark, he's back out on circuit, is Scott. I know that he's, for a lot of people, they'll see Scott. There's always, sadly, some form of issue for Scott through the season, and I know that he's had a good few issues tonight. I know his arms are absolutely knackering him at the moment, but it's going to be another race finish. It looks like he's going to equal his best result of the season of 18th as well, so he'll be pleased with that, although he's got Joe Warner right behind him. And he's made an impression in this championship as Joe. He's a newcomer pretty much to racing, is Warner in the Joker McLaren, but despite his errors, despite his mistakes, he has shown some competitiveness in a couple of races, to be fair to him. You know, he had that 15th place back at, I think it was Alton Park, or I think it was round 7 or round 8 where he finished in the top 15. You know, he certainly can show some good pace. I think what it comes down to, and it's a good demonstration for everybody, is, you know, track knowledge is so important. And for Joe tonight, he clearly doesn't know the track as well as his other competitors, as he has a kick of oversteer on exit at turn 9 and going through to 10. But that's not the point. The point is that he's continuing to improve. He's getting the track knowledge. He's improving race upon race. And that's what it's all about with sim racing. If you're watching this at home and you're thinking, I'd love to get involved, and you've got a wheel, especially for ACC, because it's almost impossible to race on a controller, but if you're racing on a wheel and you think, I'd like to give this a go, sign up for ACC Race Nation Season 10, because that's what Joe's done. And he's having a good time, and he's part of the community. He's a notable player in the community. What I mean by player is I don't mean he's chatting up people, although that would be quite funny, to be fair, if he did. But for Joe, he's a member of the community, and that's what it's all about. You know, it's getting to make friends and having a good time racing. And he's out there in 17th. It'll be his second top 20 finish of the 4 rounds he's done. Rich Jeremy's another one who's joined a little bit later in the championship. You know, he's on for his best result of the season. He didn't finish last time out, sadly, but he was showing some. This was looking like his most competitive race so far of the season. If I'm being truthful, he was in the pack. He was on the fringes of the top 10 in that Mustang. Sadly, he had that incident, but again, it's a learning curve, and if he can apply that speed again in the championship for season 10, he'll be right up there. So it'd be nice to see Rich get a race without some issues. But speaking of drivers who have had issues, the unluckiest man on the grid, Ross Harris. He's 12th in the drivers' standings at the moment, and I think that is probably... I was going to say, I think that's probably where he will finish, to be honest, because Tom Creed is way up the road, so he will probably overtake him, as will Simon Whiting. But Creed will overtake Tony Manley and Martin Van Reenen because they've disconnected from the lobby. So Ross Harris will end up in 12th place, I think. And I think it's a season of what could have been for him, because he's been desperately unlucky, has Harris in that Lamborghini. He's been desperately unlucky. You know, the only round, really, where I think he's not had any issues is the opening race at Zolder, where he finished 5th. You know, and I expected him to do even greater things. He was doing well at Silverstone, but he had issues there. He finished down 18th. You know, Alton Park, he was 7th. You know, he was unlucky at Suzuka. He was on for a top 10 finish. I think Harris, as his championship standings don't reflect his real speed. So I think for Ross, I think it's a case of dusting himself off and moving the unlucky spoon over to somebody else for next season. Will he keep the same car? I don't know, but it's been really nice to have a Lamborghini on the grid. You know, he is the only one driving it. Kind of like Neil Wright in the Porsche. You know, he's the only one driving the Porsche 911. But sadly, we haven't seen much of Neil Wright this season either. Eden Peckman. What can I say about Eden Peckman? Well, he's very mixed, is Peckman. I think he'd agree with that assessment, because he has had a couple of top 10 finishes. You know, he had 10th at round 3, he had 10th at round 5, you know, at Bathurst and at the Nordschleife. But for both of those races, it could have been even better. I think Peckman is one of those drivers who's very solid, but we're almost waiting to see the next steps from the Croatian. Now, that's not a criticism of him. I think he's had a good season. He's had some really good pace at times, and tonight he's been mixing it with a few drivers. He's a couple of laps down, but I think he's had damage as well from his accident earlier. But I think the Croatian, he's got a lot more in him. And again, another driver, I hope that he's got the ability to improve next season, and he will get a few more top 10s. And we've got Joe Warner round at his favourite corner again. Mark Chapman, well, he's in 13th place. And in terms of the Drivers' Championship, he's in 7th overall. And I talked about him before, but, you know, Chappers, I hope he comes back next season. I think if he gets rid of those mistakes that he's had this season, he'll be a championship protagonist next time out. I think he just needs to just limit those little mistakes that he's made, like he has done tonight. And I think he'll be a championship contender. But again, he definitely has the pace to do it. Daniel Danu, he's had a bit of a strange race today. He's not been on the pace that he has shown throughout this season. Looks like he's going to finish maybe in 12th place by the seams of it, because he's dropped a little bit further back. I don't know if he's been in the pits again, but I thought Danny was putting in a late season charge, and he has done. You know, since we commenced the second half of the season, he's not finished outside of the top 5. you know, in these last 4 races until tonight. He's been really on it, and I think I think for Danny, he's one that I think has the ability to win a race. You know, he's had a number of podiums this season, and he's been in the mix. He's just lacking that little bit of luck, I think, to get there. So Danny, one to watch next season for sure. John Wells, I've talked about him before, but you know, he's had one of those mad seasons, really. He's had a lot of bad luck. Not as bad as Ross Harris for sure, but he has been caught up in a lot of lap 1 stuff. But for him, 5th place at Nordschleife, I think that's going to be his highlight. Alton Park as well, finishing 8th place. You know, John will be delighted to get out of the Mercedes. I know that he's not enjoyed driving that car this season, but again, like Ross Harris, like Neil Wright, they have been champions of their own cars, and there's been no other Merc on the grid. It's been nice to see the 69 car out there, but it looks like it'll be an 11th place finish for the big Merc. We've covered Dennis Penders, Steve Hall. I think Steve Hall's had an absolutely solid season. I just think for Steve, I think that the weakness, if you could give the reigning champion a weakness this season, has been his qualifying performances, because his race pace has been absolutely fantastic. You know, he's had 2 podiums, he's had a number of top 7 finishes, he's had 4 extra top 7 finishes. He's just been caught up in traffic quite a lot of the time. You know, he's been caught out by slow drivers, he hasn't had a chance to get past them, and that's not a lack of overtaking ability or anything. He's just not been in the right place at the right time. And I think Steve, for him, he's going to be focusing next season on that qualifying pace. So, reigning champion or outgoing champion, he still had a solid season, and finishing what looks to be maybe 5th or 6th in the drivers' standings. You know, I think that's still a relatively good campaign for him. Miroslav Grasic, well, he's shown some pace in the last few laps, because he's not really been overhauled by Steve Hall, and I didn't think he'd get overtaken, but you know, he's not been closed down in the same way that I thought he was going to. But Grasic, you know, a really good drive for him today, and he's again a driver who has taken the scruff of the neck of that car in that Ferrari. He had a few races where he was off the pace, he was struggling a little bit, but these last few rounds he's really done a solid job. So the Bosnian is going to get another top 10 result, and I'm excited to see what he can do next season. The 722 driver, keep an eye out for him. He could be consistently in the top 10. Let's hope he can. Jordan Harding has closed the gap down to Tom Creed. I said about 30 odd minutes ago that Harding seems to close the gap as the stint wears on. He seems to look after his tyres a little bit better. He's only 1.4 behind Tom Creed, but Jordan's had an unlikely title challenge this season. You know, he's had 2 podiums. He got that 2nd place at Bathurst. He had 3rd place at Alton Park at a track where the Mustang shouldn't have been as high as it was, but he kept it on the road. And he's going to finish in 4th place by the looks of it in the championship, and I think he'll be delighted with that. I think it's been a really good campaign for the Orange Mustang, who's now going after his fellow stablemate of Tom Creed. And these two have been quite closely matched this season in terms of raw speed. You know, Tom Creed, he finished 2nd in the drivers' standings last season. He hasn't entered as many races this year, so he's down in 13th, but he is quick. You know, 2 second places. He could have had more podiums, to be honest, but he's had a few accidents. Alton Park springs to mind. You know, if I look as well at last time out at the Red Bull Ring, he was unfortunate there. So, again, Tom Creed, one of those drivers, he can be in the mix for race victories next season too. Rover Rakatamanga, I think the Frenchman's, I've already talked about the Frenchman quite a lot today, but he, one to watch for next season. Can he get any podiums? Danny Zoutenbayer, another driver. You know, he's going to finish, I think, with the drivers around him and in front of him who are missing this race, he might finish 19th, 17th in the driver's standards, I think. But that podium at Suzuka is honestly one of the greatest underdog stories of the season. It was wonderful to see it. 4th place last time out at the Red Bull Ring. he's had an accident today, but other than that, he's had a really solid drive, and he's only going to be... You know, he's only going to be 8 seconds, maybe 9 or 10 seconds behind Simon Whiting. So a good season, a good half season from the Dutchman. And if he can put together a full campaign next season, I'm looking forward to seeing what he does. If he can show this level of consistency in that Dayglow Sunshine Ferrari again. Simon Whiting. I've said it before about Simon, you know, he's a very quick driver and he can get race victories. He hasn't took part in all of the races this season. He's missed 3 rounds, so he's going to end up, I think, in 13th, 12th. It's very close. There's a bunch of drivers where it's really close together, so he could end up in the top 10 overall in the championship, depending on how the points play out. But if he can put a full season together, and that's the thing, if he's going to be available, but if he can, he's got a really good chance of going for the championship. You know, other drivers who could go for the championship next season who aren't here, Kosic, you know, the Swede, 4 race wins this season. He's not here tonight, so he's actually not going to finish on the podium in the driver's standings, I don't believe, because he's already had 1 did not start. So I think Jordan Harden's going to finish 3rd in the driver's standings, and Daniel Danu will be 2nd. So well done to those 2. But Tony Sokolov, if we're talking about championship contenders, 2 races for Sokolov that he's not scored points in. One of them he didn't start, which was the opening race at Zolder. The other race he retired at Imola. But his pace is undeniable. You know, 3 race victories. He's potentially on his way to a 4th race victory with 8 minutes and 44 seconds to go. You know, he's not far away now from that victory. And I think that if Sokolov can effectively manage to do 9 races next season with the drop score, he could really be on for the championship challenge. Now, I am going to come back to Packham in a moment, because, of course, I can't talk about all the drivers in the field and leave Stewart out. But I do just want to follow this little fight here, because the 2 Mustangs are going to give us some action on track in these last few laps. Let's see if we can cut over to the Fords. There they are. The Fords are always together on the timing block when I skip through them, but Jordan putting the pressure on the back of Tom Creed, and he's looking more confident in that orange Mustang. That's a good exit from Harding. He's going to be right under the rear spoiler of Tom Creed, who's going to push him to the as far as he can, really, but Jordan keeping it committed to the inside at turn 1. Creed moves across. They give each other racing room, but Jordan breaks a little bit later than Creed, and he goes through and he moves up into 6th place with 7 minutes and 16 seconds remaining. But I think Creed's tyres are just on the wrong side of worn compared to Harding's. But this fight is not over yet. I will come back to that fight in just a moment, because let's talk about our champion-elect, shall we? We've lost another driver, actually, whilst we've been talking, which is a great shame. I'm not quite certain who it is that we've lost. I'll have a look at that in a little bit. But this is the driver that fully deserves to win the championship, because Stuart Packham this season has, at every single round, been immensely quick. There's not been a round where he hasn't been fast. He has had a little bit of bad luck at times. You know, Imola, he finished down in 7th. If we think about Suzuka, he had that issue as well there. You know, those are the only 2 races that he hasn't really had the run of the draw. He got a little bit lucky at Spa, admittedly, but when he spun on well, he spun and hit the wall on the final lap, but he was so far ahead of third place it didn't make a difference. And that's the only blot on his championship this season. He's been absolutely fantastic. Every single race that he's competed in, he's qualified in the top 5, which just underlines the level of speed that he has. Stop-go penalty for Scott Clark, but let's not take away the fact that today has been another excellent drive from Stuart Packham. He is absolutely at the top of his game in that number 46 M4 GT3 car, and he's navigating the traffic as he does, as best as he does, and the traffic does get out of the way for him, thankfully. But he's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 podiums this season. You know, 4 of those have been second places. He had a third place at round 3 at Bathurst. He won round 2 at Silverstone when he did that really cheeky undercut on Kevin McEntee, and that might have been his only race victory this season, but his tactics every single race have been absolutely spot on. You know, he always looks for an undercut. You know, he was unlucky not to win at Spa in terms of with the battle that he had with Kosic. There's been a few occasions where he could have won a couple more races, but it's not just about that in this championship. It's about consistency. And it looks like he's going to finish within 3 seconds of the Croatian of Sokolov in front of him. And he's been an absolutely star of the season. And I think for Packham, it's just rewards for the campaign that he's put together. We've got 4 minutes and 11 seconds to go, and all Packham has to do is get to the end, and that championship trophy will be going to him, and I am convinced he'll be absolutely ecstatic with that result. I'm just going to have a look to see who we've lost from the last few minutes, because sadly we have lost one other driver. We were on 18 drivers before, but it's down to 17. I'm just looking to see. I know that Martin Van Reen, Tony Manley, Michael van der Wal, they went earlier, but Sokolov, Packham, Rover Rakatamanga is still here. Obviously we've got Tom Creed circulating, but he's now starting to struggle with those tyres. Rich Jarram's still here. Scott Clark's back in the pits. Ross Harris is still circulating. Packham is actually closing the gap down to Sokolov again. In fact, that looks a little bit closer than 1.8 seconds, I've got to say. Are we going to have a grandstand finish with 2 minutes and 52 seconds to go? We've still got Joe Warner. I do apologise. I know we're concentrating on this fight in front. I am still trying to figure out who it is. So Joe Warner's still here. Ross Harris is still here, as is Scott Clark. Dennis Penders is in the top 10. Rich Jarram is still here. We obviously lost Martin Van Reen earlier. Adam Peckman is still here. John Wells is just outside the top 10. Tony Manley we lost earlier. We've got Tom Creed, Jordan Harding. They're still here in the Mustangs. Michael van der Wal went earlier. Steve Hall's still second. Steve Hall's only 7 seconds behind Miroslav Grasic. He's really thundering after the Bosnian, but he will run out of time, sadly. Danny Zoutenbayer is still here. Miroslav Grasic is still here. Simon Whiting is still running in 3rd place. So, a little bit of a confusion there. I'm not quite certain. It's Daniel Danu. That's who we've lost. Daniel Danu, the man in 2nd place in the Drivers' Championship, is not going to finish. Now, if I just have a quick look at his results, he's not retired all season as the Spaniard, but at round 2 he finished 16th. So I'm just wondering what that will do to the points. Will Jordan Harding get 2nd in the drivers' standings? We'll have to wait for the calculations to come through on that one. But we have less than a minute to go here at Kyalami. It's been a fabulous race. That is how close we are after an hour and 59 minutes. I think we've got Chappers who's gone off the road. Yeah, he did go off the road at the right-hander of turn 12. He's driving very slow. He's going into the pits, is he? I'm not... Well, I said... Well... Forget about Mark Chapman. Look at this gap. 1 lap to go. Final lap of the race. And Tony Sokolov has lost a second on this lap. And we've got a fight on our hands. The champion-elect has got an opportunity to go for the race victory and take the crown in style. Can he make any impression on the Croatian in front of him? Through the left-hander we go. We've been in this situation before this season with Packham chasing down the race leader on the final lap. We're on lap 69, which I'm sure Packham will be delighted about. But this 2-hour race is about to come to a conclusion and we've got a fight on our hands, but Packham runs a little bit deep at 6. That's just going to give a breather to Sokolov. But it's the middle sector, I think, where the Ferrari is struggling. The Nismo gloves soaring away at the wheel as we approach turn 9. And Sokolov braking a little bit earlier than Packham. Oh, Packham running a little bit deep, and that might just have finalised that battle. 0.8 seconds is the gap. There is riding on board with the Croatian, who's got 2 corners to go of this circuit just to hang on, and it looks like he's going to do so. 1 final corner. The Croatian is going to take a 4th win of the season. Well done to Tony Sokolov, but a big congratulations. It's Stuart Packham, your champion of the Season 9 GT3 Championship here with ACC Race Nation. The number 46 has done it. Well done to Stuart Packham. Here's your champion. Simon Whiting will be the next car to come across the line. And there is Packham doing the donuts at turn 1. I knew he was going to do... Well, he did 1 donut and then reset to track. So thanks, Stuart, for that. Simon Whiting will come across the line in 3rd place. Danny Zoutenbayer, he did get the gap closed by Rover Rakitamanga a little bit in the end, but that damage wasn't enough to lose him. 4th place. Well done to the Dutchman. Grasic and Steve Hall have seen the checkered flag. There's Dennis Penders. Mark Chapman, Eden Peckman, Ross Harris, Rich Jarram, Joe Warner, they've all seen the checkered flag. Rover Rakitamanga will cross the line in 5th position. Well done to the Frenchman. Jordan Hardin, after his issues earlier on, he's going to take 6th place. And the last driver who will cross the line, because Scott Clark is in the pits, will be the fellow Mustang of Jordan Hardin's. It will be Tom Creed, the number 13. He will be the last driver to officially cross the finish line here at Kyalami. So there's the situation with the standings in this race. After 70 laps of action, Tony Sokolov wins it by 0.6 of a second from our new champion of Stuart Packham. Simon Whiting, 30 seconds back practically in 3rd place. Zoutenbayer 4th. Rover Rakitamanga in 5th place, Jordan Hardin in 6th, Tom Creed in 7th, Miroslav Grasic in 8th place, Steve Hall in 9th, with Dennis Penders rounding out the top 10. John Wells in 11th, Mark Chapman in 12th, Eden Peckman in 13th, Ross Harris in 14th position with Rich Jarram in 15th, Daniel Danu disconnected at the end, but he will be classified in 16th position. Because he did finish in front of Joe Warner. We will check that in terms of the points. Whether he will be classified, we'll have to find out. Joe Warner, as I just said, the Joker car on your screen there in 17th place. Scott Clark in 18th. He got to the end despite his issues with his arms. Well done, Scott. Michael van der Waal disconnected early on. Tony Manley was even earlier than that. And Martin van Reenen also disconnected from this event. Well, what a season it's been here with ACC Race Nation. There's been so much competitive action over the last 10 weeks, and despite a second rerunning of the Nordschleife, we got there in the end. Your new champion, Stuart Packham, deservedly takes the Season 9 crown, but I guarantee the drivers will already be looking forward to Season 10 later on in the year with ACC Race Nation. I will be back to do commentating for the championship, so do watch all of the action live on my Twitch channel and on YouTube as well. What I'll be doing over the course of the next day or two is I will be putting the playlist together on YouTube. It's the same channel as it is channel name in terms of Jack TM53 Synopsis. If you want to watch the playlist of all of the races bar Imola, it will be in one place on the YouTube channel. So do subscribe and look forward to some more fabulous action of these GT3 cars for Season 10. But that is it. The final lap and wheel has been turned on this wonderful championship. And all that's really left to say is thank you to everybody who has watched tonight and throughout the season. Thank you for joining us on this wonderful journey of 10 races here on Assetto Corsa Competizione. All that's left now to say really is I've been Jack Millington, your commentator for Season 9 GT3s, and wherever you might be in the big wide world, have a good one, and we'll see you very soon.